unaware that the unusual girl was the daughter of a wealthy man and would fall in love with him. A poor single father allowed her to stay for one night. Jack's voice was calm but firm as the rain pelted his shoulders. "You shouldn't be here alone," he whispered. The girl turned swiftly, startled, and said, "This isn't a safe place for anyone to stand at 2 o'clock in the morning." Her hair was damp and plastered to her face, and her terrified eyes darted around before settling on him. Jack, who was still wearing his city cleaning uniform with the bright stripes softly shining under the streetlight, stepped closer, but not too close. "I'm not feeling sorry for you," he said. "I'm offering a warm place with water and no knives in the street." "I don't need you feeling sorry for me," she snapped, tightening her embrace. Stranger's hands. The girl hesitated. Her lips trembled, not just from the cold. He saw her fingers shake the way she looked towards the dark end of the block, as if expecting someone or afraid someone might come back. "What happened?" She looked down as he said, "I was robbed," his voice now lower. "My phone is dead. I've lost my bag." After letting the silence linger for a while, Jack exhaled. "Want to give someone a call?" "I don't want to talk to anyone," she said, shaking her head. "All I need is a place to stay secure until daylight." Jack considered it. His first instinct was to turn and leave. He couldn't take any chances because he had a daughter at home who was 6 years old. But he stopped thinking and started acting because of the way she stood, trembling with fear and pride. "All right," he said, adjusting his work bag strap. "It's not far, but it's warm, and I live 2 blocks away. Can stay on the couch for the night." She seemed like she may fight again, but then her knees bent slightly. "Okay," she said, just loud enough to hear. They moved in silence. Jack observed, but remained at a polite distance. Upon arriving at his modest duplex home, he cautiously unlocked the door and gestured her inside. With a small pink rucksack beside the door and children's books on a shelf, the clean but dimly lighted house was obviously inhabited. He pointed to a mat and added, "The couch is yours for the night. Take your shoes off there. The closet has an extra blanket." Jack went to the back of the home and entered a small room filled with boxes, and she nodded silently while using her sleeve to wipe the rain from her cheeks. He returned with a blanket, a fresh towel, and a dry sweatshirt. "The restrooms to the right," he murmured, handing them to her. He had placed his wallet and keys in a locked drawer, not because he suspected her, but rather out of a survival instinct. She grabbed the things with both hands and said, "You can shower if you want. The water takes a minute to get warm." Her eyes darted to his face, perplexed by his composed demeanor. When she eventually said, "Why are you doing this?" Jack gave his neck a quick rub. The child appeared to wince at the statement. "Because you looked like you needed help, and I'd hope someone would do the same for my daughter if she ever gets into trouble." Daughter, but remained silent. Jack scribbled a letter while she was in the restroom and set it next to a steaming cup of microwave-heated water. Then he proceeded down the hall into the bedroom he shared with his little girl, as quietly as possible. 20 minutes later, Emma emerged from the restroom, still wearing the large sweater. The house was quiet. The message, the mug of warm water, and a folded blanket were on the coffee table beside the sofa. It read, "Please keep the door closed. My daughter is a light sleeper. If you need to call someone, the house phone is on the wall. Don't be afraid to open the closet for more blankets." Her fingers lightly brushed the cup's edge while she gazed at the note for a while. She felt something she hadn't felt in days for the first time during the night, when the warmth from the ceramics seeped into her flesh, secure, pulling the blanket over her. She curled up on the couch and listened to the rain outside get softer. Neither her name nor his had been requested by the man who had taken her in. She hadn't felt criticized, inferior, or like she owed him anything because of him. She was unaware of his identity, but that didn't matter for the moment. She would go to sleep and decide what to do the following day. Emma heard laughter when she woke up. Shrill, and obviously a child's. She was momentarily disoriented. The warmth emanating from the kitchen, the nice blanket wrapped around her, and the calm background sound of cartoons. Compared to the chaotic night before, it was a huge change. In the gentle morning light, she blinked and gently sat up. A young girl was sitting on the carpet across the tiny living room, her legs crossed, constructing a tower out of plastic blocks. She seemed to be unconscious that Emma had woken up, as her curly hair bounced and she giggled to herself. Emma responded softly in a scratchy voice, "Good morning." The child's curiosity lit up her face as she gazed up. "Hello," she exclaimed. Joyfully, "You're the princess who slept on our couch." Emma blinked. "Please pardon me." "I'm Lily," the child said with pride. "A kind woman stayed over because she was cold and it was raining, according to Daddy. You are that." Emma laughed for the first time in days. "That must be me." "Lily, nice to meet you." From the kitchen came a voice. "Breakfast duty, Lily, help me." "Burn the toast, please." Lily raced to the kitchen, giggling once again. Emma, whose body was still rigid from sleeping in strange positions, rose up, stretched, and followed cautiously. When she entered the tiny kitchen, Jack was using one hand to crack eggs into a bowl while using the other to stir something in a skillet. "You cook?" she inquired, unsure if her voice expressed appreciation or surprise. Jack looked over. "Only if Lily has the courage to consume it. Do you wish to assist?" Emma paused. "I can try, but I should let you know that I'm not very good at cleaning or cooking." Grinning, he handed her a whisk. "I'm not either. We burn a lot of toast in this house because of this." Even she was surprised by the sound of her laughter. They walked around the tiny kitchen together. As Emma attempted to flip scrambled eggs, Lily went up on a stool to assist with buttering bread pieces. Naturally, she made a mistake. Eggs splattered across the counter and onto the floor when the bowl went sideways and the spatula fell out of her grasp. Emma let out a gasp. "Oh no." Lily reached for the towel before she did. Grinning, the young girl gave her a paper towel. "It's all right. Daddy also frequently spills things." After giving her a long look, Emma started laughing heartily. Without a word, Jack simply grinned and carefully returned the remaining eggs to the pan to continue cooking. Emma gazed anxiously at the plate before Jack when they eventually sat down to breakfast. Despite her best efforts, the bacon was strangely chewy, the toast was slightly toasted, and the eggs were overdone. But Jack savored every morsel. He put on a straight face and said, "This is great." Emma said, "You don't have to lie," and she arched an eyebrow. "I'm telling the truth," Jack said. "It's suitable for consumption." "That's important." Lily gently chewed as she prodded at hers. Emma made an effort to avoid observing. Jack got up to pick up the dishes after the meal. "You two unwind. This will be handled by me." He waved Emma away when she tried to assist. He was surreptitiously removing another plate of freshly scrambled eggs and toast from the oven as she and Lily made their way to the living room. Just in case, he had prepared something else for Lily. She remained silent. The small girl leaned in and whispered, "The eggs Daddy made after were better, but it's okay. He still ate yours?" Later that morning, Emma's eyebrows went up as she assisted Lily in building a Lego house. Lily gave a nod, but he instructed me not to tell. "He made more? I'm sorry." Leaning against the doorframe, Emma proceeded to the kitchen after getting up. Jack was in the middle of eating his second dish of eggs when he looked up. Her arms were crossed. "I therefore ruined breakfast." He gave a sly smirk. "Did you prepare breakfast?" "That's what counts. Why don't you tell me?" Jack gave a shrug. "Because it's usually messy when you try anything for the first time. In any case, you need someone to eat it." After giving him a long look, Emma felt a shift in herself. She had never encountered anyone like him. Sincere, really kind, and patient in a way that put her at ease. "You said something last night about hoping someone would help your daughter if she ever needed it," she softly said. He simply grinned a little and returned to his eggs without saying anything. "You're a good father, Jack." Later, Jack talked, casually while doing the dishes. "A laundromat is located nearby. The owner is a friend. If you're staying in the city for a while, I could ask if they need help." Emma paused, then said, "Maybe I need to make some money while waiting for papers. I lost everything like a job and ID, stuff like that," adding, "I'm a student or I was from another state. It's complicated." Jack simply nodded, and Emma gave him another look. The bell above the laundry shop door jingled as Emma entered, and the smell of soap, mixed with something sour and metallic, hit her all at once. Machines clanked together, baskets of clothes were overflowing, and the air was warm, stuffy, even. A woman behind the counter hardly looked up. "You Jack's friend?" This man didn't know who she really was, and he didn't care. He was helping her because it was just who he was, and that somehow made her feel more understood than anything money could ever buy. The woman offered Emma an apron when Emma nodded in response to her question. "This is when your workday begins." Emma's back hurt by noon. Her hands were red from soap and fabric softener, and 2 customers had already yelled at her, one saying she shrank his sweater. Another gave her 3 bags of wet clothes, and I expected this by 5 before leaving. She checked the clock, and she was only 3 hours in. By late afternoon, she was slumped against the wall in the alley behind the laundry shop, her cheeks red and her apron stained, her phone still dead and useless in her coat pocket. She gazed at the dumpster across from her, thinking about walking away, back to the shelter, back to anything but this. Emma didn't say anything when she got back to Jack's house that night. She just dropped her bag, sat on the edge of the couch, and took off her shoes while wincing at the blisters on her heels. Jack saw but didn't ask. Emma woke up the following morning to discover a pair of spotless white sneakers by the door. They had no tag or note, but they were obviously not hers, so she picked one up. They were lightweight, sturdy, and precisely the right size. Inside one shoe was a small piece of neatly folded paper that read, "I thought your feet deserved better. At least avoid walking in agony if you're leaving." She stood there for a long time holding the shoes. And then she put them on. When Jack returned from his night shift, she was in the kitchen already halfway through making toast. "You didn't leave," he said. "I almost did," she replied. "But your guilt trip shoes worked," Jack smirked. "They weren't meant to make you feel guilty. No, they were meant to say you have the choice, that's all." Later that week, she complained again after folding a seemingly endless pile of towels. "I've never been this tired," she mumbled, rubbing her neck, "and I used to believe that yoga was difficult." Emma didn't immediately respond, but those words stuck with her. That Friday, the laundry shop received a big order for a nearby hotel, and they had to wash, dry, and fold more than 100 sheets and uniforms by morning. "You're earning something real now," Jack said, looking up from the laundry bag he was sorting. "You mean back pain?" "I mean the freedom of living by your own hard work. Even if your hands get dirty, it's yours. No one can take that from you." "I can't feel my fingers," Emma moaned as she climbed into the passenger seat of Jack's old pickup truck. "You'll miss them when they're gone," Jack said dryly, starting the engine. They drove through the quiet streets, dropping off bundles at a few houses. It was peaceful in a strange way, almost peaceful. Emma stayed behind to help Jack finish the job. They worked past midnight, with bright lights humming above them. Jack folded in silence, quick and skilled. Emma found it difficult to keep up. Frequently unfolding and refolding the same shirt 3 times before she got it right. It was easy. The silence between them wasn't awkward. At one stop, Jack gave Emma a small laundry bag and said, "Go leave this at the door." She nodded and went out to house number 15, the one with the porch light. She put the bag on the step and turned back. But the porch light went out and a big dog ran toward her from behind the gate, barking. Emma screamed and staggered backward, her ankle twisting on the curb, her palm scraping the concrete, and the truck door slammed. Already rushing toward her, Jack arrived just as the dog came to a halt, howling frantically, and he stood between them, arms out, yelling, "Come back." Shocked, the dog turned back to the yard. Emma was grabbed up by Jack before she could protest. "Damn it, Emma," he exclaimed, raking a palm down his face. "I told you to wait in the truck," he snapped as he carried her back. "I thought I could handle a bag of laundry," she muttered, gripping her aching wrist. He placed her gently inside the truck and slammed the door behind her. "Remain in place. It's only a minor bump. I care that you could have been seriously hurt, but I don't care about the scrape," he interrupted in a gruff voice. "What were you contemplating?" She had never seen him this way before, furious really. Furious, but beneath it all was fear. She stared at him for a while before her eyes began to well up with tears, not from the pain in her ankle, but from the sudden, overwhelming storm of emotion. "No one's ever yelled at me because they were scared for me," she muttered. "Well," Jack replied softly, "you're in the wrong house now," as he leaned back and relaxed the tension in his shoulders. Emma was folding towels behind the counter when the necklace slipped out. It was a thin gold chain, delicate and fancy, with a single blue stone that caught the light like a drop of blue fire. She had hidden it inside a pocket of her duffel bag, wrapped in an old sock, hoping she would never see it again. But somehow it had found its way into the laundry by mistake, and she froze the moment she saw it lying on top of the pile of white clothes. Emma wiped at her cheeks and laughed, a wet, broken sound, and for the first time, it no longer felt like a house, but rather like home. Jack passed by before she could grab it, paused, and glanced down at the necklace. He remained still for a second before slowly looking up at her. She held her breath. "That," he whispered softly, "isn't a broke student carries around." Emma murmured, "I forgot it was in there," before reaching down and swiftly grabbing the necklace and slipping it into her back pocket. "Who is it?" Emma didn't respond, so Jack moved back, his face tightening as he inquired in a low voice. "Who? Are you really?" For a long moment he stared at her. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I left things out." Emma swallowed hard. "I'm someone who walked away from a world where everything has a price except love," she finally said. The silence was louder than any shout. "That's the same thing." Emma's lips trembled, but she turned away, her gaze averted. "No," Jack responded, "but I know what it's like to be honest with someone who isn't." "Do you know what it's like to be watched every moment of your life? To be told who to love, where to go, and what to become?" I asked, my hands quivering. Before either of them could say anything more, the door opened and a man in a leather jacket and baseball cap entered, holding up a smartphone and staring at Emma. "There she is," he muttered, raising his camera, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. They stood there in silence, the only sound between them being the hum of machines. Jack went forward and said, "Hey, get out of here," after the man took a picture. "You've been missing for 5 days, sweetheart. Your father is offering 6 figures to know where you're hiding. Calm down, dude." "I'm just doing my job," the man said, taking another picture. Emma backed away, panic growing in her chest. Jack moved quickly. He grabbed Emma by the arm and pulled her toward the back exit. "Go." Immediately. Emma's mind was racing as they rushed out the rear door, her breathing laboring. Until they arrived at his pickup. Jack continued to sprint. "How about Lily?" Emma exclaimed. "And she's in school. I'll get her." Within an hour, Lily was in Jack's arms, drowsy and confused. Jack gave her a juice box and strapped her into the truck's back seat, and Emma watched in stunned silence as he drove them, not home, but to his neighbor's house next door, Mrs. Ramirez. You trust her, Jack said, and she'll keep her safe. Jack leaned down and kissed Lily's forehead, saying, You'll stay with Grandma Ramirez for a little while, okay? Just like a sleepover. Lily nodded. Okay, Daddy. Jack straightened, took a deep breath, and turned to Emma. Let's go. They drove out of the neighborhood, not talking until they were on the edge of town, and Emma stared at him in the silence. Mrs. Ramirez opened the door before he could knock, nodding silently. Your arm, she said abruptly. What happened? He kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting lightly on his leg, fingers bending, and Emma noticed then that his shirt sleeve was torn. Thanks and shame battling in her chest. When I attempted to block his camera, the man shoved me. Why didn't you say anything? He asked, looking down at the bruise that was developing along his upper arm. I can tolerate a bruise as long as you and Lily are safe, Jack shrugged. Emma's eyes filled up as she gazed at him. She realized then that Jack had not protected her because of who she might be, but because of who he was. They got back to the house shortly after sunset, and Jack parked a block away to be safe, watching for cars that weren't supposed to be there. Emma sat next to him, nervous and silent, the porch light off, an indication that something wasn't right. Jack gestured for her to stay in the truck, but Emma had already opened the door. It's okay, she said, as she had already opened the door. Come on, I have to deal with it. As they approached the house together, they noticed a black fancy car sitting in front of the driveway, shining and smooth under the street lamp. Two men in dark suits were standing by the porch, and the front door was open. Jack sped up, following his instincts, and stepped in front of Emma to keep her safe just as a third man, tall and with silver hair neatly combed back, emerged from the house. Emma, he said icily, get in the car. Emma froze, but Jack did not. Are you her father? He asked steadily. I am Winston Harrington, he said, his eyes keen. You're the man who has been hiding my daughter, Jack said, and I'm the man who gave her a couch when she had nowhere else to go. Winston stepped forward slowly, staring at the house in disgust. This place, this life, it's beneath her. You can't possibly think she belongs here. She made that decision, not me. You can't. Emma moved between them, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Dad, stop. You've made your point, Winston said, gesturing to his men. Now come home. I don't keep anyone, Jack said, his voice harder now. But I'm not handing her over like she's a briefcase either. Winston's eyes narrowed. You don't know who she is. I don't care who she is, Jack. I know what kind of person she is, and I know what she's safe here. Jack turned to Emma and said, No, he said firmly. This is where you ran to, not where you belong. Emma was already staring at the car, her eyes wet, and she said, No one's forcing you. Yes, they are, she said, her voice breaking, but not with words, he understood. The pressure wasn't physical. Rather, it was the heavy weight of a life. She'd tried to escape crashing down again. She took a slow step back from him, as if she were fearful of the consequences if she moved too fast. He didn't follow. She turned to face the car. One of the bodyguards opened the door. Winston remained silent. His work was done. Emma stopped at the sidewalk's edge, her back to Jack. I'm sorry, she said quietly, not turning around. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The door closed behind her, making the sound of closing the last chapter in a book. Jack stood on the porch. As the car drove away, tail lights fading into the night, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. The house quiet, empty in a way that hadn't been felt in weeks. And he didn't say a word, just shut the door and turned off the porch light. The days that followed were quieter, too quiet. Jack went about his daily business, clocking in for his night shifts, sweeping city blocks, and returning home just before sunrise. But something inside of him felt dull, his eyes no longer lighting up when Lily greeted him in the morning, his hands moving without feeling as he packed her lunch, brushed her hair, and walked her to the bus. He hadn't explained to her why Emma was gone, Only that sometimes people had Lily didn't ask many questions, but she stopped humming when she played and started sleeping with the lights on. She coughed on the fourth day, which Jack initially assumed was a cold because she always got sick when the seasons changed. Then came the fever, then the chills, then the unstoppable shaking, even under 3 blankets, and by midnight she was burning up. Jack carried her in his arms to the truck, his keys shaking in his hands, and the bright lights at the hospital made everything seem even more difficult. While Jack waited for someone to call his name, a nurse led Lily into the first treatment area. At last a woman approached and said, "We need a $6,000 payment to admit her." Jack took out his wallet, realizing it was worthless, and asked, "Can I pay part now?" "How? I'll cover the rest in a few days." The woman hesitated, citing hospital regulations. Jack's voice cracked as he said, "Please, she's 6 years old." He was still arguing when a voice interrupted him in the hallway behind him. "I've got it." He turned to face Emma, who was standing there with her coat over her arm and her hair wet from the rain outside. Emma passed him without waiting for a response and gave her card to the receptionist. "Put everything under my name," she said. The nurse typed quickly. "Do you have a connection with the patient?" Emma answered, "Yes, I do." After giving Jack a quick glance as they led Lily to a room, Jack stood motionless. An hour later, after the doctors had declared that it was a virus that could be treated, but required close supervision, Jack sat next to his daughter's bed with his elbows on his knees and his head in his hands. Emma entered the room quietly, and he didn't look up at first. His voice was low. "You didn't have to do that." Emma sat in the chair next to him. "I know." He shakily exhaled. "I'm sorry." "You shouldn't have been. I know you don't owe me anything." He continued, "But thank you for coming back." Emma glanced at Lily, sleeping, a faint scowl on her fevered face. "You didn't pull me in, Jack. I came back." He nodded slowly, then his voice fell again, thick with something he wouldn't let out. "You once told me that everyone deserves to walk without pain," Emma said, leaning back in the chair and looking at the ceiling for a while. "That goes for hearts too," she said. They sat quietly. Jack was able to breathe for the first time in days, not only because Lily was safe, but also because Emma had returned. Emma stood in the opulent hallway of her father's penthouse, her shoes silent on the shiny floor, and the windows from ceiling to floor showed a glittering view of the city. But she didn't care about it. She wasn't here for the view. Winston Harrington sat at the head of a long glass table, reading the money section of the paper, and he didn't look up when she entered. Coolly he said, "I figured you'd be back once things calmed down." Emma didn't return. "You're denying reality, Emma. You're running around playing house with a man who works 3 jobs just to keep the lights on." Emma crossed her arms. "That man saved me." "From what?" Winston scoffed. "A little discomfort. You had everything. A future, safety, and family name. You threw it away for what?" Winston folded the paper with extra composure. "He's not a cleaner. He's a father. He's a man who shows up every day for his daughter without fail. A man who taught me more about being strong in 3 weeks than you did in 30 years. Winston narrowed his eyes as Emma moved closer. "I didn't throw it away. I walked away. There's a difference." Winston got up from his chair. "You gave up everything to hide in a tiny place with a cleaner." Emma's voice didn't shake. "He can't give you anything." Emma smiled softly. "He gives me everything that matters." Winston walked towards the window. "I'm choosing my life, my voice, and yes, the man who lives by his hands and his heart." His lips tightened. "You love him?" "I do." He exhaled sharply as if the word itself had hurt him. "Will you choose him over me?" She looked him in the eye. His eyes were steady as Emma followed him. "Real life is hard. You'll get tired of it. The struggle, the giving up. Love doesn't keep the heat on. You think he can protect you, provide for you. He already has, she said. Not with money. With respect, with truth. He turned sharply, finally meeting her gaze with something vulnerable in his eyes. Winston then went to the bar and poured himself a drink. I never meant to be the bad guy, he muttered. I know, Emma said. You just forgot how to be a person. He looked down into his glass, his shoulders loosened. He has something I don't. Emma tilted her head. You mean a daughter who loves him for who he is? He looked up sharply. She didn't give a flinch. I'm going back, she said simply. Him. To my chosen life. And I'm not running this time. I'm moving in its direction. Winston didn't stop her, and he didn't apologize either, but his voice halted her as she got to the door. Tell him he's lucky, she murmured softly, turning back. No, she said. I'm the lucky one. Then, without turning around, she stepped out into the rain, the commotion, and her actual existence. Just after sunrise, Jack was in the kitchen preparing Lily's favorite pancakes, dinosaur-shaped ones, while wiping his hands on a towel in anticipation of the mailman or possibly Mrs. Ramirez delivering some homemade food. He opened the door and froze, and Emma stood there with her hair pulled back in an untidy bun and her jacket dripping with morning dew. She held a small brown paper bag in her hands and said softly, For Lily, blueberry muffins, the real kind. Nothing phony. Jack remained silent. I'm not present. Quickly, in a firm voice, she added, to stay the night. If you'll have me, I'll be here to stay. He looked for skepticism in her face, but he couldn't find it. He remarked in a harsh voice, We're not rich. Emma stepped closer. Jack, I've had it all. Travel, money, and luxury items. However, I never had a kitchen where dinosaur pancakes were prepared. I never had a household that made me feel loved in return. Jack gazed at her. The weight of every restless night, every silent word, and every suppressed emotion that threatens to explode. She remarked, This house is small. It's enough. His eyes softened as he said, It's full of love. I had everything, she repeated, her tone softening. We don't have much. They were interrupted by a little voice that said, I just didn't have a family. Emma. They both turned to find Lily rubbing her eyes while standing in the doorway. Emma dropped to her knees. Lily rushed to her and put her arms around her neck, saying, Hey sunshine, I brought muffins. With a glance up to Jack, Emma asked, Are you staying? Forever. He gave a nod. Despite her tears, she grinned. 2 months later, on a cold Saturday morning, the park was bustling with families, dogs, laughter, and the aroma of freshly prepared food. Yeah, kiddo, forever sounds good. Jack had converted his old truck into a food stall for the weekend. Emma's suggestion. Jack accepted orders as Emma operated the cooking grill, and the sign said, Jack's Jams, breakfast wraps, muffins, and coffee. Lily smiled proudly as she distributed stickers and napkins to patrons. Even though they didn't make a lot of money, they made enough to start something new, life. Emma saw Jack observing her as she flipped a pancake. She smiled back at him as he mouthed the words, Thank you. She felt like a queen for the first time in her life without the need for a palace. All she needed were them. The greatest lives are sometimes created with kindness, integrity, and the courage to put love before fear rather than wealth. All Jack had to offer was a cup of warm water, a couch, and a calm, self-respecting heart. And that's just what Emma had to find home. The one thing her world had never provided. Hello. Please click like and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this article. There will be more tailies soon. Don't ensure you don't miss any new news. Don't forget to switch on the bell. I appreciate you listening.